This video is sponsored by Surfshark. Did you know 86% of people own a smartphone? So because everyone's got a phone that they can whip out their pocket and record, it's no shock that people often capture horrifying, crazy, and bizarre encounters, some of which we're going to look at today. This week's nail-biting clips range from a jet skier that flew too close to the sun to a man who buried himself in a glass coffin. This week, we've got the lot. So without any messing about, let's dive into 5 clips captured before horror. On Wednesday, the 31st of October, 1990, as the autumn leaves drifted in the breeze, it was to be a Halloween night like no other. That night, 32-year-old American magician and escapologist Joe Burris, also known as Amazing Joe, was to attempt the ultimate stunt. That night, he planned to be buried alive, a stunt that even the famous Houdini had attempted and failed. If that night had gone to plan, Joe would have done something that nobody else would have done, and by the end of the night, he would have been crowned the ultimate escape artist. He said before the stunt, and I quote, "I believe I'm the next Houdini and greater." That Halloween evening, the plan was that Joe would have his hands bound and then round his neck and then round his arms, so he wouldn't be able to move at all. He then would be placed in a glass and perspex coffin, and once he was in there, he'd be lowered into a 7-foot hole in the ground and then covered with dirt and cement. Now, while this sounds terrifying, Joe wasn't too worried. He'd actually done this stunt before, only that time he was covered with just dirt. While approximately 150 family and friends gathered to watch, Joe can be seen wearing a white tuxedo. He had no idea what he was about to go through.
You realize that cement starts to harden first at the lower elevation, so it's going to be hard.
You mean it hardens at the lower part? I thought it started at the top.
No, it hardens at the top.
No. In fact, I shouldn't even kid. This is very serious. This is no magic trick like you've been seeing this night.
Before anyone knew it, several men were heaving him into the specially made glass box. People stood by and watched as a Halloween night turned to true horror. Laying 7 foot in the ground, cement and dirt began being poured on top of him with the industrial mixers. It began to fill the hole, and the glass coffin soon disappeared. Sadly, within seconds of the concrete being poured on top, the glass gave way, shattering under the immense weight after an estimated 9 tons of dirt and cement was poured on top. Witnesses said that they could hear the heartbreaking sound of the plastic and glass shattering. Rescuers dug frantically in the dirt to attempt to reach Joe in time. However, it was futile. When they finally got to him, he was dead. This stunt had cost him his life. Just 2 years later, to commemorate the 66th anniversary of Houdini's death, this exact same stunt was performed by another escape artist, Bill Shirk. He too planned to be buried in a glass coffin, and that day many watched as the dirt and cement got poured on him. However, just like Joe's experience with being buried alive, within an instant, the coffin exploded under the weight of the debris. Diggers worked frantically to dig through the mud and the cement, and miraculously, a hand could be seen moving in the dirt. Bill had a few cuts and bruises, but he had survived. He was dragged out of the hole and taken to a waiting ambulance. When questioned, Bill was disappointed that he couldn't complete the stunt. However, he was extremely grateful to be alive, claiming that he won't be doing this stunt again anytime soon. Do you know what I don't like about the internet? When you pay for a service and you only get half of what you pay for. Did you know that there are many movies and TV shows available exclusively from the UK Netflix that you can't access outside of the UK? Well, with Surfshark, you can. I've done the research, and Surfshark VPN is the best VPN on the market today. With a click of a button, Surfshark allows you to change your IP to whatever you need. They have a whopping 3,200 servers in 100 plus countries, meaning you can travel virtually anywhere. Another huge plus to Surfshark would be when you're abroad. For example, my partner wasn't able to watch Love Island when we were in Tenerife. However, with the installation of Surfshark on her device, we spoofed to a UK IP and it allowed her to watch her show without the fear of missing any drama. It also keeps you and your data safe while you surf the web. Surfshark masks your IP, it encrypts all the information sent between your device and the internet, and it also stops your internet service provider from spying on your browsing history. And in my opinion, the best plus to Surfshark is the fact that you can have one subscription and spread it to unlimited devices, meaning you can share your VPN with your family and friends, and you can all be protected together for one single price. And don't forget, Surfshark offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's absolutely no risk to try. So if you want to protect you and your family, be sure to take advantage of this exclusive deal. Click that link in the description, and don't forget to use my special promo code TRAGEDY for 3 whole months for free. However, with that said, let's get back to it. This horrifying footage begins on February the 20th, 2014, on an active railroad bridge situated high above the Altamaha River in Wayne County, Georgia. That Thursday was a special day. It was in fact the first day of filming for a biographical drama film, Midnight Rider, a film based on the autobiography of the singer Greg Allman. Now for a bit of background, Midnight Rider was directed and produced by Randall Miller and Jody Savin. Leading up to this day of filming, Randall and Jody secured permission to film on a property that was secured by fencing. However, running straight through this property was a CXX railroad. This railroad included Wayne County's historic Doctortown Railroad Trestle, a bridge suspended over the Altamaha River that was still in use. Now this piqued their interest. They both thought that this railroad would make an amazing dream sequence for the movie. So they applied to CSX, the owners of the railroad, and they replied and told them no. So they applied again, and were declined again. They told the crew that because it's an active railway, it's not safe to film on. However, despite being declined twice, they both thought that they're only going to be recording for a minute and it will be fine. So that day, part of the crew gathered at the railroad and under Randall's direction started to set up the dream sequence. Randy and Jody both ensured the crew that it was safe to do so and that there was nothing to worry about. Now this dream sequence involved a heavy metal hospital bed, so they put it on the track and they began filming. However, shortly after they begun filming, completely out of the blue, a freight train came flying round the corner, travelling at 68 miles per hour, or around 93 kilometers an hour. It was coming right at them. This gave the crew less than 1 minute to escape. However, the only escape was towards the oncoming train and off the bridge. Seen from 2 angles here, the train is coming right towards them, and it seems the crew underestimated the speed at which it was coming. They panicked. Part of the crew began packing up the camera and moving the heavy bed, but by then it was far too late. The train struck and turned the metal hospital bed into a deadly object. On impact, the bed shattered into pieces and sent pieces flying towards the crew at high speeds. Tragically, one of the pieces hit camera assistant Sarah Jones, sending her tumbling into the path of the train. When the train had passed, the crew found Sarah's lifeless body by the railroad. The train had killed her instantly. In the chaos, 7 members of the crew were injured. This accident soon hit mainstream news, and many wondered why they chose to film on a railroad Why didn't they listen to the railroad owners? And why did they tell the crew it was safe? In July of 2014, producers Randall Miller and Jody Savin, along with the assistant director Hilary Schwartz and the executive producer Jay Sedrish, were charged with involuntary manslaughter. 1 year later, in 2015, Randall pled guilty and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. However, he was released after just 1 year. Jay Sedrish was sentenced to 10 years probation, while Jody was let off scot-free. This tale of tragedy begins on August 10th, 2021, in Yavatmal, a small village located right in the centre of India. That night, a 24-year-old man called Ismail Sheikh, along with several of his friends, went out to test a prototype vehicle that Ismail had been constructing. Ismail had little access to cars and transport, so he wanted to do something unique, and something that would help his village and bring it fame. So this is when he decided to build a helicopter. Ismail took to the internet to fulfill his dreams. He watched countless YouTube videos and read endless forums, carefully building it to the precise measurements. He soon created the chassis by welding a metal frame with steel pipes and then fitting a Maruti 800 car engine to power it. After a few months of hard work, the first prototype was ready. He called it the Munna helicopter because that was his nickname. And soon, Ismail started conducting test flights, letting the rotors run to max RPM. This video captured shows Ismail testing it in his garage. Over the following year, Ismail made several test flights, and at some stages even reached 5 foot off the ground. His dream was slowly coming true. On August the 15th, it was India's Independence Day, and Ismail really wanted to show off his creation to his entire village. However, he had one more test flight to make before Independence Day. So, 5 days before, on August the 10th, Ismail invited all of his friends to watch a test flight. With his friends standing by, watching the entire thing, Ismail sat in the makeshift helicopter and started the engine. And at first, it all seems like it was going as expected. The rotor blades begin spinning, and it almost looks like it's going to take off. But sadly, this is when the rear motor blade begins to spin out of control. Without a second's notice, it shattered. As it did, it collided with the main rotor blade, twisting and contorting the metal. Within the space of just 1 second, the flying rotor blade sliced Ismail's neck. Silence rung out as his friends rushed over. There was nothing any of them could do. Ismail was rushed to hospital in Pusad, but tragically, he succumbed to massive blood loss in the hospital. Ismail just wanted to make his village proud, and while his creativity and hard work should be applauded, this story is a somber reminder that safety should come first, before anything else. He should have ran more tests before putting his life in danger. Just imagine trying to build a helicopter from the internet. If this had worked, he would have made national news and history. But sadly, it just wasn't meant to be. This terrifying and crazy video begins on the 5th of July, 2017, in Southampton, a large seaside city nestled on the south coast of England. It's the home port for some of the largest cruise ships in the world, with the Titanic actually sailing from Southampton in 1912. Because of the close vicinity of the water, as soon as the weather allows, thousands of locals and tourists alike flock to the beaches, many partaking in the water sports activities. However, on that particular summer day, a YouTuber by the name of Ross218, who has now deleted all the videos on his channel, decided he'd join in on the fun and he'd take his jet ski out with a group of friends. The video in question was recorded by Ross, and it shows him having the time of his life, zipping and hopping over the tepid waves with glee. In the distance loomed a large shipping vessel. It was heading right towards him. Ross revved his accelerator and he got closer and closer to the gigantic shipping vessel, getting so close that it was within touching distance. For a short while, he bounced here alongside the ship, without a care in the world, enjoying the moment, when all of a sudden, it all goes wrong. As Ross got closer to the stern of the ship, the undertow created by the propellers suddenly became clear. It wrenched the rear end of the jet ski and dragged it partially under the water. At this exact same time, Ross's hand slipped, causing him to pull the kill switch of the jet ski. He and his jet ski soon became swamped by the bow wave, trapped in a violent undercurrent that was constantly dragging him down. Ross held onto the jet ski, the only thing keeping him above water. By some true miracle, Ross managed to survive this ordeal, completely unharmed. Ross managed to restart the jet ski and get out of the horrible situation. From here, he continued to have his day of fun, as planned. However, he had no idea how close he got to death that day. It was by pure luck that he was alive. If he had have been dragged under the water, Ross would have been caught in an endless loop of converging currents, similar to what you get in some waterfalls. And if that didn't take his life quick enough, he would have then been sucked into the propellers and turned into fish food. This video is a perfect example of why you should stay far, far away from any commercial ships while you're in the water. These ships are designed to be as heavy as possible and to go as fast as possible. They displace thousands of litres of water as they move, and if you're caught out, you don't stand a chance. However, by looking at the clip, it looks like Ross deliberately drove towards the vessel, risking his life in the process. Many online viewers commented and scorned him for his careless actions and demanded that he be banned from jet skiing and prosecuted. This insane footage begins in Beirut, Lebanon, on the 4th of August 2020. As the people of Beirut went by their day, it was like any normal August afternoon. They had no idea that this day would change their lives forever. But to make sense of what exactly would transpire that day, we need to roll the clocks back to the 21st of November 2013. That morning, a Moldova flagged ship called the Rosas, on its way to Georgia to Mozambique, carrying approximately 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate, an explosive chemical often used for fertilizers, docked at Beirut port. However, upon arrival in Beirut, its crew apparently went on strike over unpaid wages and then were unable to disembark due to loads of unpaid bills. Due to this, by order of the judge, the vessel's cargo of ammonium nitrate was unloaded into the port's warehouse 12. Once unloaded, the cargo of ammonium nitrate sat idle for 6 years. While it sat there, Lebanese customs state that they sent 3 letters to judges requesting that the cargo be moved. However, these were all ignored. Now fast forward to 5:45 on August the 4th, a fire had broken out in Warehouse 12 after a team of welders came in to repair a door. Inside the warehouse at the time was the cargo of the ammonium nitrate stashed alongside a haul of fireworks, a recipe for disaster. At 5 minutes to 6, a team of 9 firefighters were dispatched to fight the blaze. They thought it was just the fireworks that were in the warehouse, but when they got to the scene, they reported back to the HQ saying that something was wrong with this fire, that it was out of control and immense, and producing a crazy sound. The firefighters worked desperately to tackle the blaze, but approximately 8 minutes past 6, it exploded. Approximately 33 to 35 seconds after the original blast, a much, much larger explosion occurred. These videos were captured as people began to record the blaze from afar. The explosion was felt as far as Cyprus, an insane 150 miles across the Mediterranean. It sent the entire country of Lebanon shaking, blowing windows out as far as the airport on the other side of the country, leaving a giant crater in the ground. It was so strong, in fact, the United States Geological Survey measured it at a 3.3 local earthquake, equal to 1,500 tons of TNT going off. Experts from Sheffield estimated that the explosion was one of the largest artificial non-nuclear explosions ever recorded. The port, along with large portions of the capital, were completely leveled. Business districts, hospitals, and highways were destroyed. The force of the blast even capsized a cruise ship, killing 2. The blast also knocked out the electricity, heavily hampering rescue efforts. While people struggled to get out of the rubble, a giant plume of orange smoke rose into the air. Officials weren't actually sure of what caused the explosion at this time, but the orange smoke was a good indication of an ammonia nitrate explosion. News of the explosion quickly hit global news.
2 enormous explosions shook Beirut, Lebanon today. Nearly 80 people are dead and more than 3,000 wounded, but the death toll has been rising by the hour.
And this is when the death toll began rising. First they reported 30, then 60, then 100, and in the weeks following the disaster, the death toll rose to 218, leaving more than 7,000 injured, damaging 77,000 apartments, leaving 300,000 people homeless, and causing an estimated $3.8 to $4.6 billion worth of damage. Families of the dead were furious at the political leaders. Many questioned why there was that much ammonium nitrate so close to Beirut, where 10,000 lived. Widespread violent protests broke out. They demanded the officials to be hung. 6 days later, on August the 10th, 4 ministers resigned from their post, along with the Prime Minister. Now, fast forward to 2023, the quest for accountability is still not complete. Nobody has yet been held accountable over the blast. Near the port, a statue of a woman was erected out of broken steel, glass, twisted metal, and other debris from the destroyed homes and buildings. Here she stands honourably, wielding a sword pointed towards the sky. Below her rests a clock, displaying the exact time the explosion occurred, 8 minutes past 6. But that is the end of the video. The Beirut explosion, while I've seen it before, I didn't know that they knew it was there and didn't move it. And the jet ski video had my heart in my hands. I'm glad he survived, but he really shouldn't have got that close to a moving ship. And Ismail building a helicopter in his back garden is kind of amazing. If it didn't end the way it did, who knows where he might be now. But what do you think? I'm interested in hearing your thoughts below. As always, I do try and read every single one, but just before I go, if you're into true horror content such as this, be sure to tap that subscribe button and make sure you're smacking that like button while you're down there. But I will see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.